Hello, I'm Don Tapscott,
And I'm Alex Tapscott.
and this is What's on Tap. Well, Alex, what's on tap is a war um, in Ukraine. Unbelievable time, sort of the end of the post Second World War era, actually, I guess. But rather than getting into the politics, let's talk about the role of technology, specifically blockchain, in all of this. And there are absolutely incredible things going on. I mean, the bigger context here is that the digital age has enabled the cancellation of a country. This is the first time a country and its leader have been canceled. And the latest victim of canceled technology is Vladimir Putin. And it happened almost overnight. I mean, most of the world and its institutions canceled Russia and Putin, and it's never really happened before. And it happened with a speed that's rather breathtaking. Not, and I'm not just talking about government sanctions, which is the traditional way that nations or people might try and isolate a country. But everybody's involved in this thing: universities, sport leagues, global corporations, churches, entrepreneurs, big tech, NGOs, lawyers, just about every institution in society. And millions of people around the world are demonstrating and taking action to support Ukraine. And all of this, of course, is enabled by the tools of the digital age. I remember back in the day, 1970, we organized a big demonstration against the war in Vietnam in Washington, D.C. A million people came out. It took us 18 months of hundreds, probably thousands of people working on organizing that thing. And today, like overnight, you have millions of people. With basically, we have real-time information and instant communication between parties and everybody. Governments, companies, all these different institutions are being challenged to take a stand. Now, we've seen this before, for example, with the Arab Spring, where protesters were able to build support quickly. But what's happening today, I think, is something that's completely different. And one of the most important countries in the world has not only been vilified, it's been isolated, and actions have been taken basically to strangle it economically. Now, Biden kind of downplayed that last night in his State of the Union speech, just saying they're isolated. But the Soviet Union, Russia is now in deep trouble economically. Mm-hmm. And some of this used the tried and true techniques like a Twitter campaign, their Facebook communities, all kinds of innovative new uses popping up around the world. I had a friend send me a tweet. It was an anonymous tweet, but asking people to write restaurant reviews and also to go on Russian dating sites to provide information to Russians. And there are apparently sample texts in Ukrainian and Russian that are available. So to the point today, it turns out cryptocurrencies are playing a big role in this too. So why don't we get started? Can you give us the facts here? This is a staggering thing. We're all around the world. People are donating to the cause through crypto. What's up?
Crypto has a long and really, I think, great history as a tool for people who are oppressed to finance their causes. That's been true in Hong Kong when HSBC cut off anti-China protesters. It was true in Belarus when protesters were fighting the regime, raising money with crypto. Even in Myanmar, the democratically elected government in exile wanted to make Tether a stable coin, its official currency, because it was a way to fund their cause. So this is nothing new. But what's really remarkable this time around is it's not only NGOs and civil society organizations and sort of other grassroots initiatives that are raising money. It's the government itself. The government of Ukraine posted on Twitter a few days ago a wallet address, a Bitcoin wallet address, an Ethereum wallet address. And within, 24 hours, they had raised millions of dollars. And that has only accelerated since. And they've actually now added um, support for other crypto assets as, founders of big projects have said, hey, if you support this coin, I'll give you, a bunch of money. And today we're now talking, quite real figures between the government of Ukraine and NGOs that directly fund the military. So not aid groups or other organizations, but things that support the war effort. The dollar figure, I think, is in excess of $40 million as of recording. And it's probably going to be a lot higher by the time people actually listen to this. So this is a remarkable turn of events. You have a sovereign nation turning to a global community to raise critical funds using a novel technology, and in the process validating the thesis in many respects for what Bitcoin and other crypto assets actually do, which is that they are a way to move and store money peer-to-peer frictionlessly, and even and in a way that avoids censorship, seizure, and other issues along the way. And so for me at least, I've donated to multiple causes. I donated to the government, which there's definitely some irony, of course, of crypto fans donating money to a government, considering they're generally suspicious of them. But I think we can all agree to make an exception in this case. But also to an initiative called Ukraine DAO, which is a grassroots organization using this new virtual model of organizing called a distributed autonomous organization to raise money. And there's a bunch of different DAOs that are out there today. So this is pretty remarkable stuff. Now the conversation around crypto assets there's other elements to this around the sanctions and so forth, which I think we should also talk about. But speaking specifically to the Ukraine situation, just overnight, the government actually announced that there would be an airdrop for Ethereum donors. So people who donated ETH to the government are now eligible for an airdrop. Now, if anybody, so just to give some people some understanding, an airdrop is when you're a crypto asset holder, you sometimes receive tokens in something new for either being a holder or engaging with a project or staking or doing something else. And in this case, basically for donating to the government of Ukraine, people are going to receive something. I don't know what that thing is. There's a couple of jokes going around that, is the SEC going to say that Ukraine's airdrop is a security and that American donors are geo-fenced? I mean, that'd be very, very funny if something like that were to occur. It's like, sorry, you're not eligible for the airdrop from the government that's being besieged by, a giant army because of some antiquated securities laws. I mean, that would be the ultimate. But anyway, I digress.
Can you explain the airdrop thing?
Well, I don't really know what's going to be airdropped. All I know is that people are going to be able to check their Ethereum address, whatever address that they donated the money from. There's going to be something else in it. And for folks who aren't familiar with how this tech works, Ethereum addresses can hold a wide array of assets, right? So anything that is built on Ethereum, but also any NFTs or other kinds of related projects. So like you can hold a zillion different kinds of things in an Ethereum wallet. So I don't know what the airdrop is going to be. People were joking also that maybe it'll be a governance token. So as a donor, you get to have some say over the governance of the country of Ukraine. I don't think that's going to happen either. But it's just like a bizarre, like mind. It'll take days, I think, or weeks or months, really, like for people to really appreciate just how earth shattering this is. The idea that a sovereign nation would turn to the crypto community in the first place, raise money in a formal way in dollar amounts that are material, and then with this airdrop, I don't know how we go from here, but it's definitely a shift in how we think about this technology and how we think about money, for sure.
But so the airdrop could also be like a gift, an NFT or something saying thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
Who knows? It could be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people who are listening to this will probably know what it is, or will be able to find out by the time they listen to it, because I expect it'll be soon. By the way, just a really interesting thing that the government has done to help encourage more donors is that when you do an airdrop, you take a snapshot at a certain point in time. So if you're like, okay, anybody who has donated before this date is eligible for the airdrop. And very smartly, they didn't say as of yesterday, they said as of the end of day tomorrow. So now they've got an opportunity for people to flood donations in to the government in order to receive an airdrop, because they will be part of the snapshot. You know, if you've donated by this point in time, you will receive something.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I think since the airdrop was announced, which as we're recording this was only 6 hours ago, they've gotten almost 10 million more dollars as a result of that. So anyway, it's just an incredible thing.
So let's go back to the sort of technology question here. Why are people donating money in crypto? I mean, why just not do a crowdfunding campaign and send Zelensky a check or something? Or why doesn't Zelensky say, here, you can make your Visa payments to us here? What's with crypto?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One, I think it's easy. You know, if you don't own crypto, then buying crypto and doing this is probably difficult. But there are over 100 million people in the world who own crypto assets, and to send money from one address to another takes about 60 seconds. You know, if you're using Ethereum, you've got a mobile wallet or a web browser extension or something. You just like log in and send the money. It's very,
so
very.
You actually made a donation. How long did that take?
Yeah, it took me about 5 minutes to donate to 2 different causes. So, you know, and again, it's easy to use PayPal and Visa, to be sure. Like, I'm not saying that this is somehow easier, but what we do know is that the money moves directly and instantaneously from my wallet to the wallet address. And we've been watching that money get swept out. So the money's been removed from those addresses. It's obviously being converted into, you know, fiat currency or what have you to buy the military equipment and the other resources that they need. You know, if it was with a credit card, it would take days to clear and settle, and there'd be an interchange fee and all this other stuff. So it actually is just straight up simpler to do this with crypto. The second thing is they're definitely tapping into a lot of people who are very online and angry as hell and who hate government overreach. And the ultimate form of government overreach is when you invade another country. You know, I think that's the kind of tyranny that really, you know, makes all our skin crawl, but it's antithetical to the whole nature of crypto assets and digital money. And so I think a lot of people are just like chomping at the bit to find ways to donate. And so creating that channel to do that is just it's just a no-brainer. And then I also think that the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, he is not only, you know, earning plaudits for how he's handling things on the ground, but he is a master tactician in the information war. You know, people were naturally inclined to root for little Ukraine in this whole thing, obviously, but his handling of the narrative and his his galvanizing has been amazing.
Yeah, that line of his, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. I mean, that's got to go down in history as one of the best lines from a political leader, you know.
Yeah, totally. So it's just good politics, and it makes good sense to engage with this, you know, very active, very political, and now pretty large community of crypto holders who want to support the country. So it's just good politics too.
So a lot of this is under the radar right now. Of course, it will become widely known. I know you're working on an op-ed, and I'm going to write something too. But right now, the narrative is coming from the traditional institutions, say Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank, is that Putin and his oligarchs could use Bitcoin to move their money around now that the West has restricted you know, the central bank's access to the SWIFT messaging system. And she actually used the news of new sanctions to reiterate her call for stricter crypto regulations. That strikes me as a faulty argument. Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a straw man argument, as they say. There's a couple of reasons why it's unlikely that Putin will use crypto. The first is that, for one, it probably overstates the size and liquidity of the market. The idea that you could replace all of the transactions of a nation state with 180 million people in a $2 trillion economy with this new asset class is probably unrealistic. And the Treasury Department in the US has actually said as much, doesn't think that crypto will be used. But there's also another reason, which is, crypto assets are not particularly good for doing outright illegal activity. And the reason for that is that crypto asset transactions, are recorded on blockchains. Blockchains are distributed records, ledgers of all transactions that are immutable. So everyone who sees them can know with 100% confidence that they're accurate and true. So if you're a criminal, you're basically leaving behind a permanent paper trail for the illicit activity that you're doing, whether that's paying for drugs, guns, and what have you, or whether it's evading sanctions. There is going to be a record of that. So I think that
there's a record, to be clear, there's a record the transaction occurred, and if you get enough of those, they create metadata. There's not a record necessarily that you as an individual made a payment to this thing, right?
Yes, that's true. But, I think it would raise a lot of eyebrows if hundreds of billions of dollars started moving between certain wallet addresses, which is the scale required to do, what we're talking about. And then the other factor is, centralized exchanges, crypto exchanges, which today are responsible for still the majority of volume, are required to comply with sanctions and other laws, just like other financial institutions. So they're not going to support transactions to move those digital assets into fiat currencies, which is what they would need anyway to do what they're trying to do. So you might think, well, shouldn't that same thing also apply to the argument that we're talking about? And the answer is actually not really. It's not that crypto assets are good for unlawful activity. It's that they're good for unpopular or difficult, to fund activity, right? Where there's friction points, where there's a risk of being financially deplatformed, where, there's upheaval. That's where they can be used. So they're a tool that enables freedom, not necessarily a tool that enables criminal activity. And this is all like well-established, kind of settled law at this point. Chainalysis, which is the authoritative firm on this, has done deep analysis and has determined that, 15 basis points. So that's, about a little more than 0.1%, so tiny amount of Bitcoin transactions are used for illicit activity compared to 3% of the economy, which is crime according to the UN. So again, it's one of those arguments that keeps popping its head back up, and rather than focusing on the enormous impact that crypto assets are having on the Ukrainian war effort, some people have seized on this idea that somehow Putin will use it to evade sanctions. Both factually and technologically, that's just difficult for him to do, and I don't think he's going to do it as a result.
Now, this is not to say that as an observer, even participant in all of this, that we're all going to agree with every cause that the money was raised for, right?
No, I think that's
everyone in the political spectrum. I mean, the Freedom Convoy, so-called, in Canada, were using crypto assets to crowdfund their movement after the GoFundMe and other intermediaries deplatform them. And ironically, many people at the time were vilifying Bitcoin as a result, calling it a tool of the alt-right and nothing else. So,
well, the same groups definitely have less to say about that now that it's being used to fund Ukrainian freedom fighters. Look, I think that's the whole idea here, is that these digital assets are for everyone. First and foremost, they're an open source technology like email, right? Someone can use an email to say something you agree with or disagree with. That doesn't necessarily make it good or evil, right? It just makes it what it is. And in my opinion, crypto assets, digital assets they're for everyone. They're for people on the right and the left, for rich and for poor, for people at home and abroad, whether you're liberal or conservative, or whether you're espousing unpopular opinions or reinforcing the status quo. The whole idea is that they're free. And that, I think, is a very powerful thing, right? In the same way that the first era of the internet, gave everybody their own printing press in a way to, share their opinions and to disseminate them widely. Digital assets give people their ability to, move money and to support causes and to store wealth in ways that was just simply impossible before. And that is, a really profound thing. And we're seeing it play out with really dramatic effect during this current crisis.
So we're going to see clearly the rise of these censorship resistant technologies having an impact. Now, some governments, especially repressive ones, have, I guess, good reasons to be concerned about the growth of all of this. But I mean, to what extent should all governments be concerned?
Well, there is no consensus, certainly, amongst governments, because many governments are different. They have different political systems. In the West, the opinion on digital assets and blockchain ranges from benign to positive, I think, overall. In totalitarian or authoritative regimes, like we've seen it in China, it's frowned upon because they want to be able to control how money gets moved in the economy, and anything that's outside of the formal system is a threat. There's a third kind of country too, though, which is poorer countries that have an unreliable local currency and whose population is broadly unbanked. There's a fear in many countries like that Bitcoin could accelerate a process known as dollarization, which basically describes conditions where people start to spend dollars as a way to avoid using the local currency. And that destabilizes the central bank and the local, because they're the currency issuer, and their ability to manage interest rates and so forth. And there's a legitimate fear of Bitcoin accelerating that trend. And in fact, I was on a panel a few weeks ago with the governor of the Central Bank of Pakistan, who is an incredibly intelligent and thoughtful individual, who said, for among other reasons, the government of Pakistan is seriously considering banning crypto. And I think they confuse blockchain and crypto with Bitcoin. They just assume it's this one thing, in part because of this reason, the idea that it could destabilize. And it's hard to make a moral judgment on that. Like, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for that country? But it's a reality of what's happening. And I think it's something that's going to accelerate.
Fascinating. Well, these are difficult times, to say the least. They're very dangerous times too. The stakes are very, very high here. But it's mighty interesting that the whole world has become mobilized.
Yeah.
Huge parts of it, and not just governments, but actual individuals and every conceivable institution in society. I guess maybe the point here you've made this is that crypto assets are for everyone, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. I actually want to go back to something that you said at the beginning, which is that this is an event that marks an end to the post-war order that has prevailed for 80 years. And it's true that it's unprecedented, or it's not unprecedented, but we haven't seen a ground war in a major Ukrainian or in a major European country since World War II. But doesn't the fact that the US and its NATO allies quickly rallied behind Ukraine and have basically canceled Russia evidence that that alliance and the US-led order actually is showing its strength and is enduring in a way? I wonder if that really, to be sure, we're entering a new era that maybe we don't know the name of it or how it works, but I almost think like the response has demonstrated the power of that post-war consensus in the West. Yeah. And despite Donald Trump's efforts to undermine that, actually it feels like it's as strong as ever, maybe stronger, because as you pointed out, the influence that civil society and corporations and social media to like change the direction of government policy is if anything, helping to reinforce that in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big difference here is that the US is not intervening militarily. Now, of course, the Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but this whole Pax Americana is being achieved through different uh, means, I guess, through economic means
Yeah.
and other means. Um, but challenging time for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and here we have a new platform where you can not just communicate information, you can now communicate value. And that's a really big game changer. And I think you're right to sort of pick this up. This can be used by everybody, you know, whether you're liberal or conservative or banked or unbanked or you know, a large mainstream institution or marginalized individual or group. And, you know, that ultimately this technology will be what we want it to be. And hopefully there are more good guys, as they say, than the bad guys in the world. Um, and you know, this technology is, to me, an astonishing neutrality. Um, it's not evil and it's not good. It's just enables people to be free. And so it kind of gets back to more fundamental questions beyond technology. What do each of us stand for? What do we think about the world? And what actions are we prepared to take, not just by speaking or demonstrating, but through economic power to bring about positive change in the world? We're in the early days of this, but it's a real sea change in my mind.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know how any of this is going to play out, but it feels like, I don't know, the past 4 years, 5 years, has felt like we've been living in historic times, but this really feels like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if this continues to play out, inevitably, if Putin is prepared to go all the way, he can conquer Ukraine. And then, as Colin Powell said, back when the US was considering invading Iraq, he said to President Bush at the time, if you break it, you're going to own it. Imagine trying to own Ukraine, where virtually every citizen is not only hostile towards the government, but prepared to take up arms.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a heck of an occupation. And now, where they can get funding, even though they're not the government and they don't have state power, a government in exile that can be funded globally by individuals all around the world. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
It is an amazing thing. Well, I really hope there are worrying signs that the situation is escalating. And I think it's probably because Putin is taking so many L's, as they say, so many losses, right? Whether it's companies pulling out, governments shutting him off, Ukrainians getting funded, the military getting supported through, you know, arms transfers. I worry that that is going to make him more volatile, not less volatile.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a cornered animal now.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you don't think rationally. So a lot of vulnerability here. I think our time's up.
Yeah.
We could talk about this for quite a while. So announcements, Blockchain Research Institute, our big blockchain revolution global enterprise focused on the Web3 and its big applications of digital assets, supply chain, healthcare, NFTs, DeFi, and the transformation of finance, the metaverse, digital identity. These are some of the big themes. That's happening in November. So you can go to blockchainrevolutionglobal.com and check that out. And also Platform Revolution, our new contribution to the discussion, some of the best of the BRI. And that's available on Amazon.com around the world. Platform Revolution, edited by yours truly. And get ready, we'll be posting soon your new tome, Alex, The Digital Asset Revolution. And that'll be available for pre-order on Amazon too. If you're not on the Blockchain Research Institute newsletter, go to our website and sign up, and you'll learn about all the new reports that we're releasing, not just to our members, but also to the Creative Commons and to the public. Interesting times. May you live in them. I'm not sure I want to live in times this interesting.
I'm ready to live in boring times again.
Bring on the boring times.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what's
Okay.
on tap for today.